You lie still, wrapped in the hush of night, but the world beneath you is never truly still. Beneath the quiet soil, beyond the grip of roots and the winding paths of worms, there is another silence, heavier, deeper. It is not the silence of rest, but of listening. The earth is always listening to itself. Close your eyes and imagine drifting downward gently, like a falling leaf that somehow drops through layers of stone. Each layer is older than the one above. Press time, quiet memory. As you descend, color fades into warmth, and warmth into glow. You are passing into a place where nothing rushes, where even movement is slow enough to be mistaken for stillness. And yet, down here, the mantle, the deep skin of the world is moving, ever so slowly, like a sleeping giant's chest, rising and falling in dreams millions of years long. The earth breathes. You cannot hear it. You cannot feel it with your bare feet. But it's there. A breath made not of air, but of fire and pressure, pushing and pulling the skin of continents. Every breath, this rise and fall, takes lifetimes. Mountains are cradled into existence. Oceans slip open like eyelids. What seems to us like permanence, the hard crust beneath your window, the shape of the land you've always known, is to the earth only a single frame in a long, slow film. One still moment in a river made of heat dot, and yet tectonic plates, those great cracked pieces of the crust, drift not with violence, but with patience. Their edges press, lift, tumble. Sometimes they glide like dancers on polished glass. Other times they catch, refusing to let go. And in that tension, the earth holds its breath. Thought it is the stillness before the shift that writes the story of earthquakes, sparks in the slow conversation of crust and mantle. When pressure builds and no one yields, the earth suddenly speaks in a sharp, shuddering sigh. But those moments, though mighty, are brief. The rest, the long exhale of movement, is soundless. Imagine it now. You hover between layers, not quite within rock, not quite apart from it. You're a breath yourself, watching the story unfold. Beneath you, convection currents in the mantle rise like dreams made of heat. Hot rock, not liquid, but flowing still, cycles upward, then cools and sinks, again and again, like fingers kneading dough inside the planet. These loops of unimaginable size pull at the base of the plates, nudging them as a breeze might carry a cloud dot. No force is alone. No plate drifts for no reason. One motion makes room for another. So as Africa inches northward, brushing softly against Europe, like a sleeping figure shifting in bed, the Himalayas grow by a whisper's width, a fragment of a millimeter every year. Mountains breathe upward while the sea floor spreads apart elsewhere, exhaling new crust from fire-touched ridgelines in the dark. The earth, for all its might, is subtle. You may wonder how something so colossal could go unnoticed for so long. But even the stars don't tell their truths all at once. Humans walked, farmed, built cities, mapped their skies, all while standing on slow-mo tectonic rafts, unaware. The illusion of stillness held strong. The continents were shy dancers, their shifting too slow for the stir of eyes. And yet the signs were always there, matching coastlines of once touching lands, fossils clasping identical shells across two now distant shores. Rocks younger than they should be rising from ocean beds, who should long ago have quieted. The pieces were there, like footprints in ancient sand. Someone only had to slow down enough to see them. Breathe with the earth now. Inhale. Feel the deep, warm motion beneath all things. Exhale. Let go of the need for speed. Nothing in this story is hurried. Even time seems to thicken down here, growing syrupy, too dense to pour. With every shifting plate, continents paint new outlines against the sky. A gulf closes. An island forms. A coastline trembles, then resettles. Though you cannot perceive it with open eyes, the map of the world is being rewritten at this very moment, in silence, in fire, in stone. The crust, that fragile, thin shell we call home, floats not like wood on water, but like puzzle. Pieces on molten flow, some crammed together, some drift lonely and apart, but all are steered by deep, churning hands, slow, relentless, never sleeping dot if you pressed your ear to a mountain and listened not for minutes, but for years. You might hear it stretching. You might feel it strain beneath your breath. Not groaning, not fracturing, just moving with immense patience. The kind of patience that builds worlds. You are lying on layered memory. Every hill, every plate, every trench and fold is a page in the planet's private book. And yet you, too, are part of its story. Small, but not forgotten. Just as the plates move unseen, your own changes do, too. Quiet evolutions. Internal earthquakes dot. There is comfort in this slowness. A reassurance that even when nothing seems to move, everything is becoming. The ground beneath you has been many forms and touched many skies. Someday, far beyond now, it will wear a different face again. Beneath the stillness, the earth breathes. And somewhere inside that breath, you are held. You do not fall. You float atop history's glow. The night presses on, and the planet turns. But under every shadow, the plates continue their quiet drift. And deep beneath the oceans, something warm has just begun to rise. Even the ocean, immense and eternal seeming, has secrets stitched into its body. Ancient ones, warm ones, made not of water, but of stone. Tonight, you slip downward again, this time through the sea. Deeper than boats have dared, deeper than sunlight remembers. Past whales who sing in the blue distance. Past the hush where colors vanish and pressure presses like a mother's hand. Far below, the floor of the ocean breathes its own quiet breath. You arrive near the center of this submerged skin, where the earth comes apart, just enough to begin again. It doesn't scream or rip. It opens gently, the tender parting of something. Old making room for something new. Here lies the mid-ocean ridge, a dream seam of the earth, curling for tens of thousands of miles like a glowing vein across the globe. You cannot see it from the surface, but it is there. A line of fire cradled in cold, where the crust spreads, and the planet writes new storylines of stone. Everything here is slow motion. Lava wells up like candle wax from the deep mantle, soft and slow, then cools when it touches the breathless dark of seawater. Islands of fresh crust harden, piece by piece, like cooled memory. Here, the earth grows. Not in leaps, not in bursts, but in inches. Just a few centimeters each year at most, like fingernails brushing through time. Yet over eons, this gentle drift has created entire oceans, pushed continents to collide, and cradled the rise and fall of tides unknown to human calendars. And even in this growth, nothing stays still. The newborn crust begins to move as soon as it forms, making room for more, letting go, drifting slowly away from the ridge like a leaf on warm, invisible currents. The plates that carry continents are driven partly by this merry seam, pulled apart by tension, pushed outward by fire, woven forward by the deep underwater ballet of creation. One side moves west, the other east, tugged softly by the quiet force below. It is here you learn something humbling. There is no such thing as truly solid ground. The deep earth is a story unfinished, and even the ocean floor is mid-sentence, still being written in molten lines and cooled punctuation. You're floating above an idea that never ends, a place that keeps making itself without pause. Tiny vents. The ridge, hydrothermal chimneys, puffing out heat like sighs from the planet's lungs. Around them, life gathers. Even here in the crushing dark, life blooms. Strange creatures, bright and boneless, shimmer with their own ghost light. Some have never seen the sun, never needed it. They drink heat, swallow minerals, and thrive on these newborn lands. You watch them through the warm mist. Their movements are slow, peaceful, undisturbed by scale. They don't question the ground building beneath them. They've made nests in the undercurrent of change and call it home. And you begin to realize the earth is more than stone. It is a living organism of drifting crusts, deep core heat, and tectonic pulses. The mid-ocean ridge is its heartbeat. Steady, unseen, faithful. The crust here is youngest, full of warmth and memory. Run your imaginary fingers across it and feel the faint pulse of planetary time, newly solidified. Walk this invisible spine for miles, and you'll trace where Earth was born again, inch by inch, fire by fire. But this is only half the rhythm, because as the sea floor grows here, it must disappear elsewhere. Like breathing out after breathing in, old crust returns to the earth at the far edges of oceans, pulled down into trenches, swallowed slowly under the weight of tectonic meeting points. The story cannot build forever. It loops, it balances. It remembers Dot, so the ridge rises not with dominance, but with humility, knowing that every gain will be returned. It grows only so that the world holds steady. What does it mean to grow, knowing you will never stay the same? It means you are part of something larger than permanence, something older than your own idea of time. It means you are always becoming like the crust, like the continent, like the very breath of this planet under your back. Above the ridge, the ocean presses downward, miles of quiet weight. And yet, even this cannot smother the heat within. The earth will always find a way to remake herself. And even in darkness, growth can begin. Let your breath match this rhythm. Small, warm, continuous. Let its patience sink into you. You are drifting over a cradle of stone, where the earth remembers how to create. The sea above forgets, but the rock below never does Dot, and somewhere along this endless ridge of fire and birth, a small tremble begins. As if the crust is whispering, it is time again. Let's follow where it leads. You are floating now through clouds, high and pale, brushed thin by altitude. But you are not in the sky. You are above stone, a place where the earth has gathered itself and pushed upward in a great expression of will. Beneath you lies a world of sharp white and folded gray, mountains that once lay flat at the bottom of a sea. Gentle seashells, ancient sand, layers of sediment written in soft tongues, all of them now soaring above the clouds as if pulled by prayer. This is the place where continents meet. Not suddenly, not angrily, but with pressure, with push, with endless patience. When two immense bodies of land drift into each other, like shoulders leaning together after a long walk, something lifts, not because they wanted to rise, but because they had nowhere else to go. Look closely, and you'll see the strange softness of their lines. Mountains are made of broken things, twisted layers, bent stones, crumpled strata. But from that folding comes height, majesty, rhythm. As if the land learned to stand taller by remembering how to give in. You reach toward the tallest, icy. Giants like the Himalaya, the Andes, the Alps, their spines sharp, their shadows long. They are peaks, yes, but also time become vertical. The result of millions of years, one fraction of a millimeter at a time, of continents pressing into one another while the earth held her breath Dot deep beneath the surface. It's not serenity. It is friction. It is heat. It is compression so vast the rocks turn ductile, not melted, but softened, bending like warm metal, never quite breaking Dot, and slowly, always slowly, this buried struggle becomes a rise. What once lay flat is lifted high into storm and silence. Wind sculpts it. Ice humbles it. But its body remains, a wrinkle of the earth, too deep to iron smooth. The oldest stones in some mountains are the highest, as if the earth reached into her past and raised it up to the sky dot. And all of this, every folded ridge, every thrown peak, began with a meeting. Two plates, drifting on the breath of the mantle, touched, not with a crash, but a tireless lean. They've never stopped pressing since. Perhaps it sounds slow, but that's only because you've been taught to look for change as something loud. The loud things, eruptions, quakes, storms, they are the punctuation. The mountains are the poemed out here. Time is visible, laid out like parchment in every thinning layer of shale, every ripple in the exposed bedrock, every fossil found far above sea level, where the ocean's voice hasn't been heard for millions of years. You wonder, how can such a forceful past bring such peace to the present? The air is sharper here, not just from height, but from the hush of reverence, as though everything that lives near mountains knows to lower its voice. Birds glide instead of flap. Snow falls silently. Wind whistles with wide, open vowels that carry the echo of ancient collisions. But underneath, always, the ground still moves. Even beneath the tallest peaks, the plates do not rest. They shift, groaning microscopically against each other, their edges still resisting, still pushing upward. It is not a process that ends. If anything, the mountain is evidence of a process that will never stop. And that is why sometimes the ground quivers dot, an earthquake is not a punishment, nor a cry of fury. It's a release, a letting go after holding on too tightly. When one side of a plate is pressed, quietly and invisibly, against another until it simply cannot bear another, inch the crust slips. A sudden adjustment in a long story of pressure. Even here, where the earth seems invincible, it remembers how to shape dot. Remember this when you feel unsteady, that even mountains tremble. Even the highest, hardest, most immovable things are not immune to shifts beneath the surface. They sway and startle and settle again. There's something beautiful in that knowledge, something softening. You drift past ridges worn by storms older than time, past rock faces scarred by glaciers long melted. There are places here no one has walked, and yet the earth remembers every step, the pressure, the fold, the grace of gravity, pulling downward while tectonics insists on lifting. Let yourself be lifted too. Gently float with the stone. You are part of this ancient choreography, not separate from it, but born of it. Your bones hold mineral whispers of uplifted seabeds. You are more mountain than you think dot in your chest. A small echo of pressure and release. In your heart, the faint rhythm of rising continents. Slow, steady, still striving upward dot, so when the road in front of you feels steep, remember, that is how mountains are made dot in the distance now. The sky begins to change. The light bends over the peaks in long golden ribbons, shadows stretched like silk over the yawning valleys below. Somewhere beneath, a river begins from melt and memory, rolling gently into the land shaped by collision. Follow it. Even the tallest mountain lets something go. The air grows warmer now, not from the sun, but from the depth of time itself. Let us descend, not into space, but into time. Time isn't what you've been taught. It doesn't tick or talk. It doesn't march in straight lines. Down here, beneath the thin surface of where we walk and wonder, time drips slowly, folds, cools, moves like magma, not rushing, but waiting. You drift now, not east or west, but downward through centuries, deeper than memory, into the molten hush of slow unfolding. The crust fades above your head like a ceiling made of clouds, and what welcomes you is warmth, soft, endless, and impossibly old. This is where plate tectonics lives, in the molten timeline of the earth, where heat becomes choreography and rock becomes rhythm. You begin to feel it before you see it, the slow roll of the mantle, like pulling silk through honey. These currents' convection, if one needed a name, are the blood flow of the planet. Rock, warm and nearly liquid, cycling endlessly in looped thought, lifting from the core and sinking again in patient descent. They do not rush. Each loop might last 100 million years. Picture that. Movement so vast, so gradual, that mountains are built, changed, and erased while a single current completes its side. This is deep time. Time that understands change not as action, but as being got. And here in the heart of it, the plates move. They do not care for calendars. They cannot be timed by clocks. Their rhythm is geological, so slow, you'd need 1,000 lifetimes just to see them blink. Not imagine now that you are light enough to float on centuries, carried across this mantle sea like a pedal on a still lake. You begin to sense the unseen wheels turning below, one plate returning into the Earth's interior, another born at a distant ridge, still cooling from the day it met the ocean dot, the continents above, the ones you've known all your life, traced on maps memorized in school, are not constants. They are travelers. Africa is moving. So is Asia. So is the floor of your bedroom. These continents have wandered slowly, gracefully, through the eons, colliding, splitting, drifting apart like rafts on lava. 100 million years ago, the planet looked nothing like now. There was no Atlantic. South America clung to Africa, like a child to a mother. India had not yet struck the underbelly of Asia. Australia, still dreaming, hadn't drifted northward. They were all part of one land, Pangaea, the great ancient holdfast, and even Pangaea was not the first. There were supercontinents before her, Gondwana, Rodinia, Columbia, old names, whispered through rock, carried in minerals that remember. The weight they once held overhead. You listen now, not with ears, but with the stillness in your chest. Can you hear it? That slow movement, that tidal breath from beneath the crust, that is tectonic time. It does not rush to be understood. It waits for you to slow down enough to follow. Here, time holds weight. Each moment is a layer, compressed and sent downward, from soil to sediment to stone. Rivers carry the memories of rain and mountain, volcanoes of fire and cycle. Every rock beneath your feet is a page written by pressure. You are surrounded by invisible clocks, not made of gears and bells, but of heat, distance, and drift. Where one plate bends downward into the earth, a new crust is born far away. Where one continent meets another, and they press together in unbreathing patience. Mountain ranges rise like frozen waves. Where a crack forms in the middle of flat land, the earth is rehearsing something large, something that may take millions of years before it comes apart completely. And yet, it is all happening right now. Time doesn't only live in the past. Deep time doesn't wait behind you. It moves beneath you. It is here, under your ribs, in your bones, formed from minerals that once drifted through oceans that no longer exist. Dust on your bookshelf, the rock beneath your garden, the metal in your blood, all carved by tectonic rhythm, shaped by molten decisions made beneath someone else's sky. And does it matter that you can't see it move? A tree doesn't see itself grow. A stone doesn't know it's changing shape. But the process still holds. Plate tectonics is not a moment. It is a becoming. A planetary breath that remakes the world not once, but forever. Drift here a little longer in this molten lullaby. Let deep time soften the edges inside you. You're not running out of time. You're floating in its current. The rivers above will shift their course. The stars will burn through new patterns. Whole coastlines will vanish, and new continents may rise where only ocean sleeps now. The earth is not just alive, it is becoming. And through it all, whether you stay or go, a faint rhythm continues. Hot, slow, beneath. Calling us into the show. Next beginning, somewhere far away, but already on its way, another crack has just begun to open in the stone. Let us walk the blooming line between rupture and rebirth. ... It begins with a crack. Quiet, neither angry nor loud. A line no thicker than a shadow, etched into the bones of the world. You cannot see it at first. Trees still bend in the wind, bees still hover over blossoms, and the grass glows with the tender green of spring. But beneath your feet, the earth has started to sigh. Not with sound, but with shifting. A fold, a stretch, a change. This is a fault line, a scar worn, politely by the land, running deep below the quiet beauty above it. It doesn't warn you. It doesn't show its stress. It lies there, asleep in its own unspoken tension, threading through cities, deserts, gardens. And yet, it remembers that once this place trembled. Once the land tore softly, opening a seam in itself like a book someone had meant to keep closed. And yet, it opened anyway. Walk into the valley now, gentle, low, full of blue light and opening skies. The mountains surrounded like old parents, watching their child slowly stretch away. But here in this green cradle, the ground itself is the record of separation. Not fast, not explosive, just slow release. This is a rift. A place where the earth has chosen to pull itself apart. It doesn't rush. It never has. The plates, those drifting skins above the molten heart, are not tearing like paper. They're stretching like old fabric, gently easing at the seams. You can't feel it with your hands. But if you stayed long enough, if you came back in 1,000,000 years, the change would be written clearly. Sometimes, deep beneath the rift, new crust is already rising. Melt climbs upward, not to destroy, but to create. Lava cools discreetly, forming little steps of birth. The land spreads, and in its spreading, it allows for newness to grow. Not just stone, but life. Look around this valley. See the petals. Close at dusk, the trails carved by fox and deer. The fields of wildflowers that sway above buried movement. Life loves rift valleys, not in spite of tectonics, but because of it. The earth opens, and sunlight finds its way in. Even in the deepest valleys, there is beauty. Even in breaking, there is architecture. You walk further now, along a river that snakes through the heart of this rift. Its water has no map, but gravity. It slides through mixture, coarse gravel, cooled basalt, smooth clay, all born from different eras of the same quiet separation. You cup it in your hands and drink the taste of deep time. Once, long ago, someone may have stood here and thought, this is ruin. The ground cracked. The shape of things changed. But it wasn't ruin. It was beginning. Sometimes the earth must fall apart to find a new shape. And still today, in places like the East African Rift or Iceland's glowing ridges, the process continues. High above the mantle's breadth, the crust. Let's go just a little. New valleys are born. Lakes appear where there were once hills. And slowly, continents flirt with the idea of becoming other things. Let your body rest in this idea that coming apart is not failure. Even the crust, with all its age, with all its weight, must sometimes relent. Let cracks appear. Make space. Inside itself, peel open softly and say, here, grow from this. Rocks tumble, ground slips, and with time, equilibrium finds a way again. Some of the most fertile land in the world sleeps inside faults, as if the earth, once broken, decided to feed life in the wound. What was split now sprouts. What was lowered becomes a basin where rain rests and seeds root. And you? You are allowed to do the same. Stand atop the fault and feel it. You may not sense movement, but it is there. tension like breath between two thoughts. This side of the valley pulling east, that one easing west. Not enough to notice, but enough to shake mountains someday. And sometimes, without warning, one side slips, a sudden letting go. What was stuck becomes unstuck. The air shivers for a moment. Trees tremble, stones tumble, and then stillness again. This is an earthquake, the punctuation in a sentence written very slowly in stone. But the valley remains. The split holds, and the world reshapes itself gently, curling around the new version of its spine. No drama, just change. The sun now begins to lower behind the distant hills, casting long streaks of fire across the split land. Shadows fall unevenly, as if the valley remembers being pulled apart and still carries night differently on either side. You lie down in the soft, fault-touched soil. Beneath, the earth continues her quiet conversation, stretching, lifting, reshaping herself in hours that fold into centuries. Nothing here is ruined. Everything here is in the process of becoming. Let this valley hold you, the same way it holds rivers, roots, stories, earthquakes, time. Let your breath match the land, slow, patient, and full of silent, generous change. And somewhere nearby, just under a hill born of pressure and peace, two puzzled pieces of the earth edge slowly apart, still trying to remember how they once fit. Time to walk the edges and listen to the world find its fit. There are no straight lines in the earth, not really. Only curves, arcs, and edges that once touched and might touch again. Imagine the continents now as puzzle pieces, each one shaped by deep memory, each one carved by the hands of fire and pressure. They drift past one another patiently, slowly, as if searching for the fit they once had. The map you were taught, with its clean outlines and colored countries, hides the truth. These lands were never still. They are travelers. And like old friends who once held hands and drifted apart, they still carry an echo of their connection. You reach down now, fingertips tracing the edge of a shoreline. The waves kiss the sand, but the true edges lie deeper, the boundary where one tectonic plate ends and another begins. It's invisible to the eye, but the earth remembers. Once, South America pressed so closely to Africa that their coastlines fit like feathers folded in a book. You can see it in their curves, a soft mirroring across an ocean now wide, but not always there. Below the plants and people of today, the rock remembers. The minerals match. The fossils echo one another's stories. Two sides of the same breath, now drifting apart on molten winds. And still, they move, not randomly, not aimlessly, but with a rhythm, a quiet pull across the mantle's tide. All the plates are listening to something deeper, something warm and slow and central. Beneath them, the earth's heat draws ancient paths, like invisible strings tugging their bodies forward. 7 major plates, many more minor ones, each with its own story, its own journey, its own edges, jagged or smooth, pressing, sliding, diving below or rising above. The Pacific plate, restless and vast, slides under others at its rim like a sigh returning home. The Eurasian plate, burdened with mountain ranges and quiet deserts, drifts ever so slowly, brushing others with ancient grace. The Indian plate, bold and fast, once crashed into Asia and sculpted the Himalayas with its momentum. They are not broken. They are simply in conversation. You pause there. The thought rests in your chest like a stone in a river. Not broken. In conversation. Each edge, no matter how sharp or shifting, tells of contact. The earth touching itself, asking questions with stone and answering in valleys, in volcanoes, in slow uplifted arcs. Sometimes the plates spread apart, like friends needing room to grow. Sometimes they slide sideways, parallel lives intertwined. And sometimes they converge, folding into one another with such pressure that entire mountains rise as a result. That is all a form of memory. A map inside the crust. A grammar of geologies, written in patient movement. If you could lift these plates in your hands, you'd find their undersides warm, some thick with ancient scars, others smooth with youth. You'd feel the gaps between, the places where magma hums like a voice waiting to be born. You'd see the borders, not drawn by humans, but drawn in the deep by the earth herself. Shifting borders made not of war, but of time. They do not fit perfectly, but they move purposefully. And perhaps that is how all things grow, not by staying still, but by trying to stay close, even while becoming different. Imagine the great supercontinents of before, those ancient unions like Pangaea, where nearly every land you know once curled into the same embrace. A single shape pressed together, mountains rising only at the seams, oceans folded shut. For hundreds of millions of years, the Earth held herself in a nearly perfect hug, but nothing lasts forever, not even wholeness. Eventually, tension finds even the tightest fit. The breath of the mantle shifted beneath. The plates began to pull. Tongues of magma rose between what once touched. And slowly, with sadness or grace, or both, the continent unraveled. But in every edge now scattered across the earth, some part of that memory remains. The continent is not broken. It's just dreaming in pieces. The puzzle continues, not with a final picture, but with infinite shifting forms. What fits today will drift tomorrow. What is whole now will become something new later. And that, somehow, is still beautiful. So stand for a moment at the edge of one of these plates. Not a cliff, no sudden line, just a gentle meeting of histories. One moves right, one leans left, and between them, a conversation that might last another million years. Beneath your feet, quiet vibrations continue. The kind of sound that isn't heard, only felt. The earth is solving itself from the inside, and somewhere, deep below, two more pieces have just found each other again. Let us fall upward now, into the fire's quiet voice. The earth folds itself slowly, and sometimes it folds inward, beneath oceans, beneath continents, beneath the silence of a sky that never suspects what stirs below. You are standing now, at an edge, not a cliff, not a sudden drop, but a place where one plate gives in, bows its head, and begins to sink. Down it goes, cold and heavy, sliding beneath the warmer body of its neighbor. This is the subduction zone, where stone becomes sacrifice, where the old is taken back into the fire, not with drama, not with noise, but with patience and heat. The plate dives, a slow descent, stiff and oceanic, vanishing beneath its partner. It has carried the memory of seafloor, of sediment and salt, of ancient shells and sunken ships. Now it sinks into the mantle, the bright, unseen middle, and there the memory burns. It doesn't vanish quickly. The rock resists. It twists, crumbles, releases water trapped for millions of years in the cracks of its being. That moisture rises into the hot mantle, making it melt, not fast, but fully. And this is how fire is born, not from rage, but from surrender. The melting creates magma, light, buoyant, pressurized. It rises because it cannot stay beneath forever. It floats like pain turning to language or a thought gathering form. Slowly, it travels upward, through layers of rock still sleeping, through crust that barely knows what's coming. It gathers in wide pools underground. It mixes, matures, waits. Until at last, a path opens, through cracks or fault lines, through softened stone, and fire touches air. A volcano is born, not all at once, not always with thunder, sometimes with a whisper and glow, sometimes slowly, as if testing the sky it has not seen in an eternity. You look now across a scattered range, tall silhouettes rising out of mist, each one a wound that healed with fire, each one the place where earth spoke upwards. This is the volcanic arc, a row of giants born from subduction's bow. The Pacific Rim is a ring of fire precisely because its oceanic plates are so often pulled below their neighbors. Every act of sinking births something new in return. Lava flows from vents, slow and glowing like honey made of light. Ash clouds balloon like gray flowers into the heavens. There is danger, yes, but also awe, beauty that roars. Life rides in behind the destruction, rooting itself in ash-rich soil. Forests grow where basalt cooled. Entire islands form from the ocean's tears. And, still, the story keeps repeating. Plate presses into plate. Rock dives. Mantle melts. Magma rises. Fire breathes, then silence again. The magma that travels upward is not just heat, it is history. It carries elements forged in the depths, silicates and gases, carbon and crystals, even fragments of ancient shells vaporized into sky. You could call them remnants. You could call them offerings. Open your hands, in your mind, in your breath, and hold the warmth of this cycle. Nothing is being lost. It is only becoming something new. From subduction, land is formed. From heat, atmosphere is changed. Even the very continents owe their size, in part, to the fire that falls upward, recreating the earth grain by grain. You walk the slope of a volcano now, its breath once molten, now cooling with patience. The stones underfoot are porous from escaping gas. They are light, they are full of holes, and yet they hold the weight of land. Even what erupts may one day be a mountain spine. Volcanoes, like dreams, erupt when something quiet inside can no longer stay silent. And so perhaps you understand now, the earth is not only shifting, it is confessing. Subduction zones are where it chooses to listen, one plate entering silence. And volcanic arcs are where it answers back in fountains and steam, with long red tongues that shape whole ecosystems. Look to the sky above this peak. You may see stars, or a wisp of ash reminding you, even in calm hours, what waits below. You may smell sulfur, sharp, ancient, rising from places unseen. Or perhaps you only feel it, the low, thrumming heat that nudges you from under the surface. It's not a threat. It's a reminder. Underneath calm surfaces lies a fire that makes the world. And when you feel the tremble of your own changes rising, remember how magma doesn't rush. It lifts through resistance. It waits until the way is open. And even then, it might only offer warmth before it offers flame. Volcanoes are the Earth's way of remembering what it is made of. And so are you. Sit now near this crater's rim, not in fear, but in wonder. Watch how lichens already claim the cooled rocks. How flowers root in the spaces fire once owned. How smoke curls upward in spirals, not escaping, but reaching. The volcano breathes, and somewhere beneath its feet, another plate has just begun to bend, and begin again. Let us journey back to a time when all lands were one. Once. The earth held itself differently, not as separate pieces or scattered shores, but as a single body, a vast continent wrapped around itself like a sleeping child. Pangaea, they named it All Earth, the Great Togetherness. Close your eyes and see it now, this ancient wholeness. A land so vast, its coastlines touched nearly every latitude. So complete that walking from what would become North America to Africa would have been no more remarkable than crossing a field. No oceans divided nations. No seas separated stories. The wind could carry a seed from pole to pole, and it would never need to cross water. This was not the beginning. Before Pangaea, other supercontinents had formed and fallen apart. Rodinia, Nuna, Kennerland. each one a chapter in the Earth's long book of becoming. But Pangaea is the one we remember best, the last time all lands embraced as one. For nearly 150 million years, this single continent breathed with the planet. Mountains rose where plates pressed together. Deserts stretched across its interior, far from any ocean's touch. Forests gathered near its edges, drinking rain born from seas that surrounded this enormous island of stone. It was not perfect. It was not still. Even in unity, the crust felt the stirring deep beneath, the mantle's slow current, the core's whispered heat. And in these secret places, change was already beginning. Then something shifted, not violently, not with intention, just the slow, patient turn of heat beneath the surface. The mantle stretched, the crust thinned, and like ice on a warming pond, Pangaea began to crack. Not all at once, not in anger, but in slow, curious separation, the way thought divides into new ones, or a single cell becomes two. First, a rift formed, a thin line, hardly visible against the vastness of the continent, but it deepened, widened, allowed magma to rise from below, filling the space between what was pulling apart. And so the drift began. What is now North America and Europe began to separate from what would become Africa and South America. A sliver of sea appeared between them, narrow at first, hardly more than a bay. But as the millennia passed, it grew. The Atlantic Ocean was being born, 1 inch at a time. The pieces continued to move. India broke free, sailing northward on tectonic winds. Australia and Antarctica drifted southward into colder waters and different destinies. The Pacific Ocean widened in some places, narrowed in others. It was not random, not chaos, but a slow, deliberate wandering. Each continent following the deep currents of the mantle, like leaves carried on an invisible stream. And they are drifting still. Africa turns slowly clockwise. North America inches westward. Australia journeys north, all at the pace of your fingernails, growing centimeters each year. Too slow to see, too persistent to stop. Imagine it now. The Earth as a living puzzle, its pieces not fixed, but floating. Each continent riding its own plate, wandering across the face of the planet, not like lost children, but like explorers, each with its own direction, its own silent purpose. They do not drift in anger or sadness. They drift because movement is the way of things, because stillness, even for stone, is temporary. Where do they long to go? Perhaps they don't know themselves. Perhaps they only follow the pull beneath, the mantle's warm hand guiding them forward. Or perhaps they are searching for something, new shapes, new unions, new ways to be whole. Some scientists believe that in the distant future, 250 million years from now, the continents might gather again. A new Pangaea, a different wholeness. The Atlantic may close as the Americas drift back toward Africa, and Europe. Australia might press against Asia's eastern edge. Antarctica might warm again as it moves northward. Nothing is permanent, not even separation, and there is comfort in that thought. The Earth doesn't hold its breaks forever. It allows for new gatherings, new connections, new beginnings. You feel it in your own body now. How you, too, are made of continents. How the minerals in your bones were once scattered across distant shores. How the water in your cells has traveled between continents on clouds older than memory. You are not separate from this wandering. You are part of it. Your ancestors crossed these shifting lands. Your future is written in their motion. Your present moment is just one frame in the great drift of forever. Feel how the ground beneath you isn't truly still. It's only patient, moving at a pace your minutes cannot measure, carrying you forward in a journey so vast, so slow, you can spend a lifetime upon it and never know you've moved. And still, the continents sail their secret oceans of rock. Africa's rift valleys widen, promising new seas. The Pacific shrinks as the Americas drift westward. The Himalayas still rise as India presses into Asia. All in silence. All in time too deep for clocks. The night grows deep around you now. And somewhere, far below, the continents are still whispering to each other across the divide, remembering when they were one, wondering what new shapes they might become. Sleep now and drift with them, for even islands remember being part of something larger. Let us float now to the places where Earth's breath rises from the sea. The ocean stretches before you now, blue and endless, its surface shimmering with light. It seems like emptiness, like vastness without form. But that is only the surface. Story. Look closer, and you see them. Islands, rising from the depths like thoughts that couldn't stay silent. Some cluster together in archipelagos, whispering to each other across narrow channels. Others stand alone, solitary guardians of their own small worlds. Each one is a memory the Earth couldn't forget. You drift toward one now, a volcanic island, its slopes green with life, but its heart still warm with creation. From a distance, it seems so permanent, a fixed point in the wide blue. But no island has always been there. Each one was born. Some rose from the seafloor when plates pulled apart and magma seeped through. Others formed when volcanoes erupted in chains above hot spots in the mantle. Still others were once part of continents, left behind when larger lands drifted away. And some are built slowly, patiently, by the tiny bodies of coral polyps, stacking life upon life until they reach the sun. But all of them remember something. The ocean forgot the black sand beach beneath your feet. It's warm, almost alive. Each grain once molten, now cooled by water and time. This island may seem like an ending point, a destination, but it's actually a footprint in the long journey of the Earth's crust. Hawaiian Islands form in a chain, because the Pacific Plate moves slowly over a hot spot, a place where magma rises from deep in the mantle. The hot spot stays relatively fixed, but the plate above it drifts. Each island is born, grows, and moves away as the plate carries it forward. The oldest islands in the chain, the furthest northwest, are the most weathered, sinking slowly back into the sea. The youngest, the big island to the southeast, still grows with fresh lava. This is how the Earth leaves breadcrumbs, not to find its way back, but to mark where it has been . Walk the shore of this dreaming island. Feel how the waves touch it, not with anger, but with patience. Given enough time, water will reshape stone. Given enough centuries, islands will bow to the sea. Nothing here is forever. Not even the mountain whose peak touches clouds. On some islands, you can see the layers of time written clearly. Bands of lava, one atop another, marking eruption after eruption, century after century. Like rings in a tree or pages in a book, the island remembers every chapter of its birth. If islands could speak, what tales would they tell? Perhaps they would remember the heat of their beginning, the moment when magma first touched air and cooled in hissing steam. Perhaps they would speak of the first rain that fell on their newborn slopes, the first seed that took root in volcanic soil, the first bird that landed on their shores and decided to stay. Or perhaps they would tell of deeper things, the pull of the plate carrying them slowly away from their birthplace, the whisper of currents both above and below, the knowledge that even solid ground is simply adrift. Not all islands were born of fire. Some were carved by ice, pieces of continents surrounded by water when glaciers melted and seas rose. Others formed when rivers dropped their sediment at deltas, building land grain by grain. And some were once mountains, now half submerged as the earth changed around them. Each type tells a different story of becoming. You climb higher now, Up the slope of this volcanic sentinel, the air grows cooler. The plants change with elevation, from salt-loved shore species to mountain forests draped in mist. At the summit, you can see other islands dotting the horizon, a constellation of Earth stars, rising from blue. Together, they form a pattern, not random, but purposeful. To those who know how to read it, this pattern tells of tectonic movement, of plates sliding over hotspots, of underwater ridges spreading apart, of subduction zones drawing arcs through the sea. The Aleutian Islands curve like a fishhook because the Pacific Plate subducts beneath the North American Plate in exactly that shape. The islands of Japan stand like sentinels above, the place where the Pacific Plate dives beneath the Eurasian Plate. The islands of Indonesia mark where several plates meet in complex conversation. They are not accidents. They are signposts in the Earth's long journey. And what of the life that finds them? Islands become worlds unto themselves, laboratories of evolution, where species drift into new forms, just as the land itself has drifted. Birds lose the need to fly when no predators follow them across the sea. Plants develop defenses against salt and wind. Life adapts, transforms, becomes something new. All because an island offered shelter in the vast blue. Night falls now, and you sit at the edge of the island, feet dangling over volcanic cliffs. Stars reflect in the dark water below, as if the sky and sea are mirrors of each other. The island breathes beneath you, not with the quick pulse of a human heart, but with the slow, deep rhythm of stone that still remembers fire. It's not truly still. Nothing is. This island is still being carried on its plate, still drifting, still journeying across the face of the planet, still being shaped by rain and wind, still growing in some places, eroding in others. Even in sleep, the Earth moves, and you, sitting here on this memory made solid, are moving too, carried on the same journey, bound to the same story. Your bones hold minerals that once flowed in lava. Your blood carries salt that once dissolved in ancient seas. You are not separate from this island, only newer, softer, quicker to change. Waves touch the shore again, gentle now in evening calm. They have been touching islands since islands first rose from the deep. They will continue long after this one has weathered back into sand. It's a conversation that never ends. Water and stone, motion and stillness, remembering and becoming. Somewhere, beneath another part of the ocean, a new island is already beginning to rise. Another breadcrumb in the Earth's endless wandering. Let us journey now to the places where the Earth learns to let go. There are places on this planet where the ground is slowly coming apart, not crumbling, not breaking, but opening like hands that once held something tightly and are now learning. To release. You stand at the edge of such a place now, a great rift valley. From here, it looks like an artist's brushstroke across the landscape, a long, low depression, cradled between gentle slopes. The floor beneath you feels solid, permanent. But this ground is pulling apart, centimeter by centimeter, year after year. This is how oceans begin. When tectonic plates move away from each other, the crust between them stretches like taffy pulled too thin. It doesn't snap, not at first. It thins gradually, sinks slightly, creates a depression in the land, a valley that deepens with time. The East African Rift is such a place, a 3,700-mile seam where the African continent is slowly tearing itself into two separate lands, not with violence, not with hurry, but with the Earth's patient hands, pulling gently apart. What does it feel like, this stretching? Not pain, perhaps, but transformation. The same way a seed must split its coat to grow, or the way dawn must crack the night to bring morning. Walk now through this valley of becoming. Lakes have gathered in its lowest points, deep blue eyes reflecting clouds, filled with life that adapts to mineral-rich waters. Volcanoes dot its length, reminders that as the crust thins, magma finds paths upward more easily. Birds circle, overhead riding thermals that rise from sun-warmed ground. Even as the land separates, it creates. This opening is not empty. It is full of possibility. When plates pull apart, something always fills the space between. Sometimes it's magma, rising from below to create new crust. Sometimes it's water, flowing in to create seas that may someday grow into oceans. The Red Sea is such a place, a young ocean being born as Arabia pulls away from Africa. Once it was merely a valley. Now, salt water fills the deepening rift. In millions of years, it may be as wide as the Atlantic. Nothing is lost in this separation. Only transformed as you walk. Feel the subtle slope beneath your feet. The edges of a rift. Valley rise in shoulders, called escarpments. Places where the stretching crust has broken into faults. Rock lifts on either side while the center sinks, creating a natural cradle for rivers, plains, and flourishing life. Some of humanity's oldest ancestors walked these rift valleys, their feet touching ground that was already ancient, already shifting. Perhaps they felt it somehow, this land that couldn't stay still. Perhaps they carried that restlessness in their bones as they wandered new paths, became new beings. Is that why we too feel drawn to open spaces? To places where we can stretch and become? Look up at the escarpment walls now, rising on either side of this gentle valley. They're not cliffs, not quite. More like sloped shoulders, carrying forests and meadows even as they slowly move apart. Their rock layers tell of older times, when all this ground was one unbroken piece. Before the stretching began, the earth doesn't rush this process. A rift might widen only a few millimeters each year, no faster than your fingernails grow. But given enough time, these whispers become shouts. These spaces become seas. Even here, there is rhythm. As the crust stretches, it doesn't just pull smoothly. It catches, holds, then releases in small quakes. The ground breathes unevenly, holding tension, then letting go. But always continuing its slow unfurling. There is wisdom in this. Patience, in knowing that becoming takes time. And what of the future? The East African rift may someday split the continent completely, creating a new ocean between what remains. The Arabian Peninsula will drift further from Africa. Iceland, itself born on the mid-Atlantic ridge where North America and Europe pull apart, will continue to grow as magma fills the widening gap. These are not endings. They are doorways. The sun begins to set now, casting long shadows across. The Rift Valley floor. Light catches the distant lake, turning it molten gold. Birds call to each other as they return to roost in acacia trees. The air cools quickly here, a reminder that open spaces release their heat more readily than closed ones. You find a stone and sit, feeling the day's warmth still held within it. This rock remembers being part of something unbroken. It holds the memory of wholeness. And yet, it doesn't resist the new shape forming. Perhaps that's the truest lesson of Earth's rifts, that sometimes, to become what we're meant to be, we must allow spaces to open within us, must let old connections gently release, must trust that what fills the new gap will nourish us in ways we couldn't imagine before. The first stars appear overhead, their light ancient, patient. They've watched continents form and separate many times, seen oceans open and close, witnessed the slow dance of becoming that never truly ends. Even now, beneath your feet, the subtle stretch continues. The earth opens its hands, not in surrender, but in offering. And somewhere, in the deepening blue of evening, two edges move imperceptibly apart, making room for whatever comes next. Let us follow the rhythm of the earth's great dance. Night has fully settled now. and you lie with your back against cool grass, stars scattered above like distant lighthouses. The ground feels solid beneath you, unmoving, eternal. Yet in this moment of perfect stillness, you are dancing not alone, but with continents. Not with steps, but with centuries. The earth has never known stillness, not truly, not in its bones. Even now, as you breathe, the crust beneath you glides in silent choreography, a dance so slow our lives are too brief to witness a single turn. But it moves nonetheless, in an endless waltz across the face of the planet. The plates, those great fragments of crust that carry continents and cradle oceans, are not fixed. They float on the mantle like autumn leaves on a still pond. And like those leaves, they drift, not randomly, but in patterns. Not chaotically, but with purpose. North America slides westward, about the width of your fingernail each year. Africa rotates slowly clockwise, pressing into Europe with gentle persistence. Australia journeys northward, perhaps seeking warmer waters. The Pacific plate dives beneath Asia at its edges, returning to the deep. All of this happens without sound, without spectacle. The dance is silent, save for occasional tremors when two edges catch and release. Even then, the sound is not the movement itself, only its punctuation. Close your eyes and imagine it now, this ballroom of stone and fire. The plates move together, not touching randomly, but engaged in specific forms of partnership. Some perform a sliding waltz, passing each other with only the slightest friction. Transformed boundaries, these are called, where two plates brush shoulders as they move in opposite directions. The San Andreas Fault is such a place, where the Pacific plate slides northward, past the North American plate. Their touch is light, but the tension in their grip occasionally releases in quakes that remind us of the dance happening below. Other plates perform a different step, convergence, where they meet face to face, and one must bow beneath the other. The Nazca plate bends beneath South America this way, diving into the mantle in a graceful arc of subduction. Mountains rise from their embrace, the Andes, lifting skyward not in hours, but in eons. And still others engage in the opening step, divergence, where they part like partners stepping back, making room for new crust to form between them. The mid-Atlantic ridge traces this movement, a scene where Europe and Africa slowly separate from the Americas, new seafloor emerging from below to fill the widening gap. You might wonder, what keeps this dance in motion? What unseen conductor leads this silent symphony of stone? The answer lies deeper, in heat and weight and time. The Earth's core burns with primordial fire, warming the mantle above it. This warmth creates convection, great loops of rising heat and sinking coolness that circulate through the planets. Middle layer like slow thoughts. Where heat rises, it pushes against the underside of plates. Where cooler material sinks, it pulls plates along in its descent. Gravity, too, plays its part. Where dense oceanic crust meets lighter continental crust, the heavier plate tends to sink, pulled downward by its own weight. And so the dance continues, not chosen, but inevitable. Not random, but patterned. A planetary breath expressed in shifting stone. You feel it sometimes, don't you? Those rare moments when the Earth's patient movement suddenly announces itself. The ground beneath your feet, that most trusted constant, trembles, buildings sway, windows rattle. For a brief moment, we remember that we live on a planet still creating itself. Earthquakes are not failures of the Earth. They are not punishments or random accidents. They are simply the voice of movement, tension gathered and released as plates continue their endless waltz. Each quake is a whispered step, a caught breath, a moment of transition in a dance that spans millions of years. And yet, for all their power, earthquakes are the exception, not the rule. Most of the time, The plates move in perfect silence, without announcement or display. They slide millimeter by millimeter, year after year, reshaping continents with such patience that mountains rise without anyone seeing them grow. This is the truest form of power, not in sudden force, but in unstoppable persistence. Stand now, on the edge of a continent where land meets sea. The shoreline seems fixed, drawn permanently on maps passed down through generations. But it is not fixed at all. It moves with the continent carrying it. It changes with the sea level rising to meet it. It erodes and rebuilds itself grain by grain, wave by wave. Nothing here is still, not the sand between your toes, not the cliff watching over the bay, not the distant mountains touched by sunset. All of them are travelers, carried on the slow current of tectonic drift. There's a comfort in this knowledge that even the most solid things are in motion. That stillness is an illusion granted by the brevity of our perception. That change is not something that happens to the world, but is the very nature of the world itself. The moon rises now, full and bright, over the eastern horizon. Its light catches the surface of the sea, creating a silver path that seems to lead from the water's edge to the sky's embrace. The moon, too, is a dancer, circling the earth in its own silent waltz. Its pull creates tides, drawing the ocean toward it in rhythmic pulses that echo the slower rhythm of the plates below. Everything connected, everything in motion. You breathe deeply, letting your body settle into the earth's patient tempo. The air in your lungs, the blood in your veins, the thoughts in your mind, all moving, all flowing, all part of the same cosmic dance that shifts continents and raises mountains. The plates will continue their journey long after this moment passes. North America will keep sliding westward. Africa will still rotate toward Europe. New seafloor will emerge from the Atlantic's central ridge. And someday, millions of years from now, the map will show a world we wouldn't recognize. But the dance itself will remain, soundless but sweeping, invisible but unstoppable, the silent waltz of a planet still young in the deep counting of stars. And as you drift toward sleep, rocked by the Earth's hidden rhythm, you carry this dance within you, this knowledge that even in perfect stillness, we are always moving, always becoming, always part of something vast and never-ending. The stars have shifted in their slow arc across the night. Your breathing has deepened. The world has quieted around you. But even in this stillness, something is being written, not with ink, but with pressure. Not on paper, but in stone. The future of the Earth is already here, folded into the present like the layers of a geode not yet cracked open. Touch the ground beside you and feel how it holds both memory and promise. The rock beneath your fingertips is not an ending. It is a sentence mid-paragraph, a thought still forming. Every fault line is a word not yet spoken. Every mountain range, a story still rising toward its climax. The planet whispers its intentions. If you know how to listen, where rifts widen year by year, new seas will someday form. The East African rift, slowly pulling apart, may become an ocean in 10 million years. Ethiopia and Somalia will drift away from the mainland, becoming an island as large as Madagascar. The Red Sea will grow wider, deeper, until it rivals greater. Oceans where plates converge and one slides beneath another. Future mountain ranges are already being sketched in the planet's rough draft. The Cascades will continue to rise along the Pacific Northwest. The Andes will grow taller as the Nazca Plate presses eastward. New volcanoes will be born where there is now only quietly rumbling earth. Nothing in this story is finished. Nothing is complete. Scientists who study the poetry of plate tectonics can read these signs, translating them into possibilities. They speak of Pangaea Proxima, or Novopangaea, the next supercontinent that might form 250 million years from now. When? The Atlantic Ocean closes, and continents drift together once more. They imagine the Pacific growing smaller, Australia colliding with East Asia, the Americas curving back toward Africa in a great planetary embrace. Not certainties, not prophecies, but possibilities written in the subtle movement of today. 4. The Earth does not progress in straight lines. Its story loops and spirals, finding new patterns in old movements. Supercontinents form, then break apart, then gather again in different configurations, breathing in, breathing out, across billions of years. What will your hometown look like in 50 million years? It might rest at the bottom of a shallow sea. It might sit atop a mountain range not yet born. It might have drifted thousands of miles from where it now rests, carried on the back of its plate like a seed on a slow-moving stream. The changes will come not in cataclysm, but in whispers. A millimeter this year, a centimeter in a decade. Movement so subtle that generations will live and die without witnessing any difference at all. And yet, it moves. Close your eyes and place your palm flat against the ground. Can you feel the earth? Dreaming? Can you sense the slow, quiet intention of stone and heat? Every earthquake that shakes the land is not just an echo of what has happened, but a hint of what will come. Every volcanic island rising from the sea is not just new land, but the first syllable of a future continent's name. The Himalayas, still rising today as India presses into Asia, will someday begin to wear away. Rain and wind and time will smooth their edges, carry their bodies grain by grain to the waiting seas. But by then, other mountains will be lifting skyward elsewhere, keeping the balance of rise and fall, of creation and erosion. This is the grace of deep time, that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. The minerals in the oldest rocks will become part of new formations. The sediment of ancient seas will rise as future cliffs. The carbon from long fossilized creatures will cycle through stone and air and life again. The future is not fixed, even in stone. It is folded, layered, full of possibility. The earth holds multiple tomorrows in its hands, and the path it takes depends on forces we are only beginning to understand. Yet in every possible future, the dance continues. The continents drift. The plates slide beneath and beside and away from each other. A mantle flows in its patient circles of heat. The core spins magnetic and mysterious, holding the whole story together from within. Your own body holds this future too. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the carbon in your cells. All of them have cycled through stone and sea before finding temporary home in your form. And when you return them to the earth, they will continue their journey through the great tectonic tale. You are not apart from this process. You are within it. A brief, beautiful note in the planet's long song. Sleep comes closer now, rocking you gently like waves against a shoreline. The earth hums beneath you, not with sound, but with continuation, with promise, with the quiet certainty that tomorrow is already written in today's movement, however subtle it might be. Dreams begin to form at the edges of your consciousness. Perhaps you'll dream of mountains rising in slow motion, of continents drifting like clouds across blue seas, of time itself made visible in layers of compressed light. Or perhaps you'll simply rest, held by the same ground that has held all of humanity, all of life, through its long transformation. And as you drift into sleep, carry this gentle knowledge with you, that even in endings, there are beginnings, that the future is already here, unfolding with each breath, each shift, each moment of becoming. The earth cradles you in its palm and whispers of tomorrow.